our goals, aligning the business mission, aligning what they are expecting from us, right? Part of that is going to be important for our market research. As I told you guys, the market research is something that is going to be involved in every single part of our let's say, one of our work, right? I was telling our students yesterday, I was actually presenting a marketing plan. Basically, I'm doing a marketing proposal for a new company. They provide, or they have a product, they sell board games, right? That's what they do. And the board game industry is really, really hard. Understanding how to sell a board game, really, really hard. So yesterday I was actually presenting a marketing strategy that we're going to be doing in a couple of months. And most of what I was doing was understanding the market, understanding the research. So in this case, my goal for this client is to start creating awareness, right? Because I need more people to understand that we exist, more people that they actually know our game, that more people can get to know the company, right? Do you guys know Exploring Kittens? Have you ever played Uno? Right? We want to be the next thing, right? But it's really, really tough. It's a very tough industry. So, usually when we're talking about, and when last week we were talking about the market research, I told you that the market research, we have to divide it, right? One part is understanding our clients, right? Understanding their current situation. That's why you were doing an audit, right? Because we need to understand who they are, what they do. We need to know the products. We need to know the services. We need to understand what makes us different from our competitors, right? In my example, in my case, I needed to understand what makes this game unique. What is different from our game that will make people purchase it, right? So that is very, very important when we're talking about understanding our client, right? One document that can help us to understand the current situation of the customer is called a brief. A brief is a document that we usually receive when we're working in an agency. We usually work with briefs. That is a very short summary, it's a very short piece of information of what they do, their expectations. Basically, it's understanding our clients' perception, and we give them specific questions and they fill the document. What is important for us when we are asking for a brief? Ask as many questions as you need to be very clear of what the client is offering. Usually, not for saying all times, but usually getting info from the client is really hard. You ask them, oh, what do you do? And they give you very short sentences. They try to summarize everything. They don't give you details. What makes you different? My product. Yeah, but what makes your product different? That is useful. Yeah, but we need more, right? So, one thing that I usually do is that when I ask for the brief, remember the brief is usually a document, I also do an interview with the client. So in that sense, I can extract more info from them. So in that meeting, usually I start collecting specific things. For me, when we're doing this first analysis, very important to understand from our client what is their perception of their company, of their product. Very important. One thing is what we think of our company, what we do, what we sell, and another thing is what my customers are seeing, feeling from our company. So in that sense, we have to align those two different perceptions, right? So when we are doing the analysis, as I told you, the first thing that we're going to be doing is analyzing the briefs. I will send you some templates of briefs that we might have, so you can start seeing different briefs. I will send you some of the ones that I have from my previous client. So according to the service that I'm going to be providing, I ask different questions. If I'm going to be developing a website, if I'm doing SEO, I try to go more into questions related to that specific service. If you're going to be selling social media, if you're going to be selling different strategies, you have to approach or you have to ask questions related to what you need for that specific service, right? So the second part that we were doing, it was, as I mentioned, the audit. So with the audit, we have basically to understand what they have, right? How many, what accounts are they using? Are they having a website? What are they having on the website? Is the information of the website clear? So what I usually do is that I have a template with questions. Is the client including call to actions on the website? Yes, no, right? They fail, they pass. Are those call to actions actually clickable? Yes, no. So I start checking every single part of the website. Are the colors aligned with the color palette of the client? Is the hero section, we will see on WordPress that the first part that you see on a website is called the hero section. It's the first thing that you see on a website, right? Is the hero section attractive? So I start asking as many questions, or I start setting some questions that can help me understand what are they having, right? Here in an audit, usually we're not judging, we're just analyzing what are we having. Because in that sense, we're going to be able to understand what we need to fix and also what the client is doing fine. In the example that I was giving you with the board games, the client, they don't have anything in terms of marketing, but they have a very good strategy towards the distribution channel. So they know where they can produce, they have good connections in that sense. They are friends with one guy that he was the one producing Exploding Kittens. They are friends with one of the top marketing persons in Kickstarter, so they have very good connection. So in that sense, they're doing some things pretty well, right? In an audit, we also have to mention what they're doing fine because we are just seeing everything, right? That is going to be one of our strengths. That is why we do the audit, because in that sense, it's going to be much easier than to go and do the SWOT analysis properly, right? So understanding the audit is going to help you to understand that website sucks. That is not going to help us with anything. So one of the weaknesses, our website, right? The online presence, we're very bad. So that helps us to understand the situation. So when we're running an audit, we have to be as objective as we can. Of course, there are certain things that could be subjective. Content. According to your expertise, according to your knowledge, you may understand some things, others no. I remember the first time that I was working, my first job actually, they gave me a book. I don't know how many pages. you have to read this. This is your SEO manual. Boom. And I was like, what? And they said, this is your first client. It's a construction company. I have no idea of construction, but zero idea, right? Because I don't do that. So I had to research, learn the terminology, because they have specific terms. They use a specific vocabulary. It's the same in marketing. In marketing, we have a very specific vocabulary. So we have to get used to different words. So in that sense, we have to keep understanding what is going on, how we are communicating with the customers, which channels are we using to communicate, so we can also start checking what are we doing on social media. Why I'm saying that we need to understand how we communicate is because, imagine, I'm that construction company and I'm using social media to communicate with the final user, right? I'm promoting houses or I'm promoting buildings, I don't know, let's say, as an example. And if I use very technical vocabulary, who is going to understand, right? If my final consumer, if I'm doing this strategy for my final consumer, I need to understand how they communicate. What are like the words, the correct words, so they can understand what I want to communicate. Remember that when we're talking about communication, communication is I have a message, right? The other person is receiving my message. So good communication is when I'm communicating and the person is understanding. If the person is not understanding the message, we have an issue. We have to see what is going on, right? It could be the channel, it could be the message, it could be the tone that I'm using. Sometimes in communication, I don't know if you have seen, but just for the examples that we can use, it changed the understanding of what I'm saying. What I was telling you, one class, at the beginning, all my students were Japanese, I told you. All of them were Japanese. And I was using a lot of examples from Colombia. So they were like, they had no idea of what I was talking about. So that was my mistake. So that's why I have to try to use American companies, American things, so we have a common understanding, right? So very important to understand what are we communicating, how we are communicating, and what are we having on social media. Remember that each platform has a different purpose. It's not the same using Facebook than using Twitter, X, right? It's not the same using Pinterest. It's not the same using LinkedIn. Each of those platforms, we have a different purpose. All of you guys, do you have an account on LinkedIn? Yes? No?
Yes.
If you don't have it, you have to create one. Because that's very important for us here to find jobs. Right? I got this one, I got the other one that I'm working on through LinkedIn. So, professional network is very important for us. So, that is part of what we were doing last week, right? Then we were analyzing the SWOT analysis, the pestle analysis, so we have an understanding of the market. But what is next? Okay, so now we have an understanding of the market, right? We have an understanding of what's going on in the industry. We need to start focusing in defining who is going to be our target audience, right? So if we go back to our structure, we are here, right? We have to move into identifying the opportunities or identifying our target audience. Who is going to be buying our product? Who is going to be buying our services, right? So here, the market analysis, the market research, it's something that we're going to be doing in every single step because we have to keep researching, right? We're going to be seeing that, yeah, we need to start defining to who are we going to be selling. But then we have to research about those users, who they are, what they do, their lifestyle, the demographics, all these kind of things that can help us to understand how can I reach them. The importance of doing this market analysis and understanding who they are is to define what I'm going to be doing and how to reach those potential customers, right? So that's why it's very important for us to understand how to define a proper target audience. So we're going to be seeing that, or we will use the STP model. The STP model basically is a way that we can use to start defining our target audience. So, as I mentioned, we do our research, we did the audit, we did the SWOT analysis, so we have an understanding of the client, of the market. Now we need to focus on understanding our potential customers, right? So, what is, with the STP model, what is the S? The S stands for segmentation. So, we will go one by one to understand how we use this model. So when we're talking about segmentation, we are talking about how we are going to be analyzing that market and saying, from this market, I'm seeing groups of people. Segmenting is grouping people according to specific things that we think are relevant for our business. An example, I can start dividing people based on the age, right? Because it's not the same talking to someone with 20 years that someone in their 50s, right? So the age could be a factor that can help me to start dividing them. I can divide my customers or my potential customers, because right now we're just dividing based on their lifestyle, based on what they do, who they are. In my case, with the board games, right? I can show you the presentation. With the board games, for us was very, very important to divide them into casual gamers and into gamers. Why I have those two specific segments? Because I'm selling a board game. So I needed to say, okay, I need to reach people that enjoy playing board games, but in an occasional way. People that might play when they're with friends, when they are in a group of people. So based on those things, I can start adding more specific characteristics, right? Okay, their ages, gender, income. So we're going to be grouping, right? That's the process of segmenting. Analyzing those groups and start grouping to identify opportunities. So we group based on specific characteristics. So let's go through segmentation. As I was mentioning, we are going to be dividing people into specific segments. A segment, a group, right? So we are going to be creating those segments based on specific things that might be relevant for the business. One big mistake that I have seen from my previous courses is that we tend to follow always templates, right? So I ask you, hey, create different segments. The first thing that you do, you go to Google and you search segmentation templates, or you search on ChatGPT. Can you create segments based on this? Every single business might be different. Even the strategy that you have or that we can have in a company could be different. So we have to create those segments based on what we need. We are the ones defining the criteria for the groups, right? So all the segments might be different. So when you are creating those groups, do it based in what you need for the company, right? Based on that goal that you're setting. That's why we define first a goal, because we need to start aligning the goal with our potential customers. Why we create segments? What is the importance of the segmentation? You might ask. Well, we need to identify opportunities. That's why identifying opportunities is the step. When we start grouping, it is because we are seeing an opportunity in those people, right? So we need to say, this group might work for us. This segment might be a little bit hard to reach. So first we divide and then we analyze the opportunity. Okay? So segmentation, dividing users into specific groups. Okay? There are 4 different types or main different types of segmentation groups that we use, right? So we have the geographic segmentation. This is very simple. I can divide my users according to their location. An example, I told you that for us, for one of my clients that I told you, the gym in North Vancouver, right? We were not going to provide services to the whole Vancouver. We were looking for users in North Vancouver. So in that sense, one of the big things for us was dividing groups based on their location. So we use a geographical segmentation. So we divide people based on their location, right? Do we need to, or when we're creating our segments, we divide it based only on one thing? No, we can be as, we can go as deep as we want. We can use as many things as we need. An example, again, I needed people in North Vancouver. But in this case, for me, it was very important, the psychographic segmentation, because I needed to understand their lifestyle. I was looking for active people. So for me, I was using the geographic, the location, and then based on that, I was adding more and more details to have a specific group of audiences, right? So let's go with the others. So geographic, I think, is pretty clear, right? Their location, country, region, city, according to what we need. When we're talking about demographic segmentation, we're going to be talking about those specific things from the profile of our client. The age, the gender, right? Sometimes the age is relevant, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the gender is relevant, sometimes it's not. So use things that helps you define an opportunity. If the gender is not relevant, why including the gender? That is not going to help you, right? An example, with the board games, do you think the gender is relevant? No, because everyone can play a board game, right? So in that case, for me, the gender, I don't care. So I'm not going to divide people based on gender. The gender is not something that is relevant for what I want. Remember that we're identifying opportunities. So in this case, the gender is not important. We have the education level, the occupation, the gender, well, again, the gender. We have just those profile questions that we usually have, right? The income could be also here in the demographics. The income, according to your business, might be relevant. In the case of this gym that I was telling you, imagine each session costs 180 something dollars. It was very expensive. And it's 1 hour. 186, something like that, 130. So very expensive. Why? Because their value proposition, that we will see that later, is that you have the gym for you. It was private in a sense. They only had 12 spots, so all the machines were free for you, and you were always working with a personal trainer. But if one class is $150, $160, $180, $200, imagine the cost of going every single day, right? So in this case for us, in terms of demographics, the income was very important. We were using, or we were including as part of our segments, that we were looking for people with a higher income of $100,000 per year in North Vancouver. So the income in this case was very, very relevant. Based on the research, we found that most of the people in North Vancouver that they were making more than $100,000 per year were lawyers, were IT developers, and project managers. That was based on the research. So in that sense, the education or the occupation could be relevant, right? Because the occupation gives us as well an idea of their lifestyle. How many hours per day are you working, right? It was a very high-end gym, so we needed to understand the hours that these people have to work out, right? Most of them, they were having their own businesses. They were business owners. So what we saw is that most of the business owners, they go to the gym in the morning, early in the morning, because they want to get rid of that and that's it. So almost 50, 60, 70% of the clients, they went to the gym before 10 a.m. So all those things help us to understand our groups, right? Then we have the last two, that is the behavioral segmentation. So when we're talking about behavioral segmentation, basically we're dividing in their behavior towards the action of purchasing, right? So we are talking about intention. We're talking about how they purchase, why they purchase, how they consume, all those kind of things. How often they are purchasing. Why this is important? Because understanding their behavior related to the product can help us to understand opportunities for specific groups. An example. Continuing with the gym thing, so we saw that they have a group of people that they purchase packages, so they're training 3 times per week. It was easier for us to target those people that were purchasing packages because we understood their needs more. We had a group of users that they were going once a week only, right? So in that case, it was harder for us to retain that loyalty with those customers because they were going just once a week, sometimes once per month. So they were using the gym just as an occasional thing. So understanding their behavior towards the action, the purchase, can help us to also define strategies that we might use, right? And the last one is called psychographic segmentation, and this one is based on who they are, based on their actions, based on their lifestyle, right? The things that they like, the things that they hate. So their hobbies, opinion. So this help us to understand is basically what they like doing. So segmenting based on their lifestyle could be very important according to what we need. So when what we need to remember of segmentation is that we have to group according to what we think might be relevant. What we think might be relevant for our business, because we are going to be analyzing those groups to see which one we should be attacking. That's, in simple words, what we do. Something that we have to understand when we're talking about, for example, age, is that usually every 10 years we have a shift in the generation. Usually in a 10-year gap we change our mindset, how we think, how we behave, our consumption, all those things change. So we have to be very careful when we are creating those groups to identify the proper ages, to identify the proper lifestyle, so we can combine those things to have a clear segment, right? It's very different, if we see it here, very different to target young audiences, right, than to explain something to probably an elder, right? Because they're not used to computers, because they're not used to these kind of topics. So it could be totally different. So here we're going to be dividing according to what we think is important. You have any questions on segmentation? Clear? So what we do here is that we're going to be creating, as I have been mentioning, groups, right? So we have this group, we have a second group, we can have a third group, and then we have to go and understand who they are. Everything related to those groups. So then we have to go again and research. Why we have to go back and research? Because we need to be able to identify everything from those specific segments, right? We're defining a group of people, but we need to understand everything that we can from that specific group. I will give you, or let me finish this, and I will show you the presentation that I was giving you yesterday, and I explained this part, okay, with an example. So I think in that case it will be much easier for you to understand. Okay, so there we go. Once we define our segments, once we define our groups, we're going to go and start thinking in our target audience. What is targeting? Is, okay, I know my groups, I research my groups, which one I'm going to be going after? As simple as that. Which one I'm going to be using? In a marketing strategy, You could have multiple target audiences because you can. You can attack different segments at the same time. But usually we have to prioritize. We have to focus on something, right? Because if you attack to everyone, the communication, or not everyone is going to understand your message. That's why we have to define, and we need to be very clear into who are we going to be going after, right? So the question here is how we define which segment is the best for us, right? Which segment is the best for our company? So there are different ways that we can use to define our target, the segment that we should be going after. The first one, the size of the market. This process that you guys are going to be doing, because you're going to be doing it, we need to include numbers. We define a group, right, of people. How many are there? How many users between 25 to 35 years old you have in North Vancouver? So you need to understand the numbers of your groups. It's not only, oh, yep, this is who they are. No, we need to put that into numbers. Remember that in marketing, we take decisions based on numbers, right? Not based on guesses. We have to find numbers. So for me, in the assignments that you guys are going to be doing, it's very important that you understand the numbers, okay? That you understand, or that we can have an understanding in a logical way of what's going on. We have to translate all those characteristics that we're putting into our segment into something like a number, right? How many users are we going to be getting? So why for us understanding the size is so important? Because let's say that I have a very small segment of people. Very small segment. It's a niche, right? I'm only going to be able to reach 1,000 customers, an example. My segment is, the size of this segment is only 1,000 customers. Very limited, right? How many customers do you have right now? 5. So 1,000 works for you, right? You guys remember the example that I was telling you from the Japanese restaurant? That the guy told me, oh, for us, 10 tables is perfect because that's part of what we want, is the quality of our food, right? If you create a strategy and you bring thousands and thousands and thousands of people, what is going to happen? Probably they're going to go because they're not going to be able to give the service because they only have a specific amount of seats, right? So we need to understand our capacity. That's very important when we're analyzing the size of our target. Why the size? Capacity. If we're able to reach and we're able to sell and you need big numbers, well, you need to find a huge group, right? In that sense, the size that you're looking is a group of people with big numbers. So that's why I'm telling you that each segment, you have to focus on things that are aligned to your business. So the second way that we can start establishing which segment might be the best one for us is based on the revenue, the income, the money that you're going to be generating, right? An example with what I was telling you of the gym. Yeah, we were targeting all of our groups were people with a high income, right? But according to the numbers that we saw, there was a group of people that they were spending more money. Who were they? Well, people that they were in the project management business, that they were people that they were doing outdoor sports. So we had a very specific group of people that they were spending more money because their lifestyle was very active, right? So in that case, probably the size was smaller, but if we want to make more money, we were targeting those guys. It's something that we can do based on the money that they're going to be generating. We can focus on those specific audiences, right? So we have to analyze in money, in income, in revenue, the size of that potential customer, right? Of that potential sector, right? So this is more in terms of how much are they willing to spend. This is in terms of consumption, in income, right? The third one is in terms of reach. How hard or how easy is going to be for me to reach that specific group, right? Because I could be saying that, oh no, these guys that they love outdoors, that they love hiking, that they love spending money on sports equipment, they make a lot of money, but I have zero chances of going after that group. Why will you go after that specific segment? So one way to establish which target might be the best one for us, it's through how easy it's going to be for us to reach them, right? Here we can talk about the cost of acquisition, right? How hard it will be for us, or how much money we need to spend to acquire that client. An example, let's say for this board game, right? So right now, they're only selling games here in the US and in the US and in Canada. That's the only market that we have so far. We identify that the Asian market is huge. In Korea, you consume a lot of board games. I didn't know, but you have so many board game cafes that you can just go and play, right? The second biggest consumer of board games is China. So Asia is a very good market. But can you imagine the money and the effort that we need to put to go after the Asian market? Who knows us there? No one. So we need first to spend money understanding the culture. We need to understand how to enter the market. We need to understand the consumption of the market. So it could be very hard for us to reach that potential segment, right? That it could bring a lot of money, yes, but it's so hard in terms of the cost for us to go there that probably is not the best option for us right now. We're talking about opportunities, right? Because we're identifying opportunities. So if you have the money and it's easy for you, go. I don't know if you have seen, but Exploring Kittens, they're going to release a new thing on Netflix now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For me, I don't see the point because it's just cats. I don't know what is going to happen, but they don't have a story behind, right? But they're going to be releasing now a story. So Exploring Kittens is growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That for them probably going to Asia. Do you play Exploring Kittens in Asia? You guys know? If they start growing and growing, probably it will be very popular in a couple of years. exploding kittens. So they are able to reach the market because they have the money, because for them they can afford the cost of reaching that audience, right? So we need to consider these things when we are defining our target. What is the target? Basically, it's our potential customers. We group, and based on those groups, we define which group are we going to be going after. That's our target audience. Okay? Is the group, is the segment that we're going to be pursuing. Okay? Any questions here? Clear? And the last part of the model, and then I will give you some other things, and then I will give you the example. Please remind me when it's 10, because I can't continue. So at 10, say, hey, stop, we need help. The last part of the STP model is called positioning. What is positioning? When we're talking about positioning, okay, we were grouping, we were creating our segments, we were defining from all those segments which one are we going to be going after, right? The target. Now we need to understand how are we going to be putting our product on our customer's mind. When we're talking about positioning, is how we can create or how we're going to approach our customer that they can have our product, our service here, right? How are we going to be positioning our product in our customers' minds, right? How we're going to be going after our target, and how we're going to make our product look different from others. How we're going to be adjusting that perception of our consumers, right? Because when we buy, usually we buy based on perception. As I ask you the first day or the second day, what is value? So value is a matter of a perception, right? So there are different things that we can do to start gaining, or strategies that we can use to differentiate our product from our competitors. I will show you just some, and in some classes, because we have more strategies coming, I will give you one. So basically, when we're talking about positioning, we can position our product, our service, through a symbolic positioning. So when we're talking about symbolic positioning, we're basically going to position our brand as something that is beyond something that we can grab. It's more of something, a position that I want you to perceive. It's a perception of something more than just a product or a service. It's understanding how I can take that customer and tell them, hey, with our product, you will be experiencing this. It's more than just the function of the product per se. It's that feeling that we're going to be taking that customer and that the product serves more than just the product. Let me give you an example so I think it's easier, because in this case, the definition is not that simple. But basically, when you go and sell a Ferrari, what are you buying? You're not buying a car, right? Because if you're thinking in a car, well, you have so many different brands. When you buy a Ferrari, when you buy a Rolex, when you buy even with Apple at the beginning, that was part of the plan. You were not buying an iPhone, you were buying an iPhone. So the perception is different. Because the perception is that you are buying something that has more value than just the product per se, right? It's something that will make you look good. It's something that will give you value just for having that product. It's a symbol of a status. Let's put it in those words. If you come here in a Ferrari, well, that gives you a status, right? Because Ferrari very luxury. The same with Bentley, Rolls Royce, any of those luxury car companies, any luxury brand, they're usually selling that status. They don't sell your product, they sell you the status. You will never see, and I can show you, ads from Ferrari. You will never see Ferrari selling the car, right? They're selling you a lifestyle. Even if you buy a Ferrari, now you are part of the Ferrari family. That means that you have to take care of your Ferrari, that you have to pay a fee, right, for the maintenance of the Ferrari. So it's more than just a car. It's a home status, right? So symbolic positioning is based on that status that you want to project, right? The second one is a functional positioning. That this one is based on the function of the product. An example. Why I have a Google Pixel, right? Why I bought this phone? Because for me, I use a lot of things from Google. I work with Google Analytics, I work with Google Search Console, I work with so many different tools from Google that with this phone for me it's easier to work, right? They gave me access, they gave me some features that the other phones at that time they were not having. So the function of the phone gives me the value that I need, right? So functional positioning is based on the functionality of that product. So you have a problem, I will solve your problem, right? You need something, no worries. What do you need? What is the thing with ChatGPT? What do you think ChatGPT offers? Functionality, right? You use ChatGPT because it saves you time, right? You need something? Done. So in that case, we are seeing the benefits based on the function that the product or the service is giving, right? So it's based on the functionality that we're going to establish the position on our customer's mind. So here is very common to see that we establish the communication through the product per se, right? The functions of our product. I will show you here some different ads from Apple, from Google, so you can see the difference, how they sell the same basic product, right? And the last one is basically through experience. So it's experiential positioning. This is more of how we create that emotional connection through experiences, right? It's how we create that bond with our customers that we can establish something more than just the product. It's different from the symbolic because here we are basically setting that the client feels that perception of a status. On the other hand, with the experience is that how we connect. We are not creating that status, we are just connecting in an emotional way. So here, right, we are going to be seeing that the brands focus on, or they spend a lot of time understanding how to communicate properly with the customers because they want that. An example, I think I told you, but in my opinion, The two best companies in marketing, Coca-Cola and Nike. I love Coca-Cola, so for me, what they do in terms of marketing is crazy. They are constantly doing activations, so they're doing events just for you to feel closer to Coca-Cola. They are doing the free Coca-Cola Day. They are doing so many different actions. I will show you some of them so you feel the connection with the brand. Why they do it? Because the next time you want to drink something, you will drink Coca-Cola. So they use those experiences to create a connection, right? So they want you to feel very close to the brand. And that's the goal of the experiential position. So I will give you this part. It's very simple. And then I will give you the example. And then I will show you, or I will continue with the presentation. So one way that we can use to identify or to apply the SCP model, I'm giving you here the steps. This is basically what I was talking about before. So we have to understand the market, we have to define in terms of numbers what's going on, so we have an understanding of that specific segment, right? So there is a way to put this into something more realistic, right? So when we are defining the size of the market, or when we are defining the market, there are different factors that we can consider. The first one is called the total available market. So the total available market, it means how big is that industry, that market as a total, right? The board game industry in Canada is about $1.5 trillion. It's huge. They reach, or we have here around 8 million consumers of board games. Huge, right? The numbers are big. But that doesn't mean that this is my segment, because this is the total available market for that industry. In our case, for the board games, it's a specific board game, right? I'm not providing every single game. It's one specific game. It's a fast-paced card game. So our industry starts to shrink, right? So here, when we analyze the total available market, we usually do it to identify or to see if it's a market that is making a lot of money. Why we do it? Because we need to have the numbers. We need to have a reference of what's going on in that industry. The board game industry, it has this amount of players. They are selling around this money, so the revenue generated by the total market is this one. We have an idea of what's going on in the industry. But then we can start saying, okay, so from the whole board game industry, the card game, it's about this size. Why? Because when we're talking about the serviceable available market, is what portion of this total available market works for me, for my business, right? So from the total available market of $1.5 trillion, the card games is only, let's say, 200 million. Okay, so I am defining and I'm understanding the service part of that total market, right? So the total market is a reference of the industry. Then we're going to understand our part of that service, right? My product, what I am doing to identify the size of that market. I will say that this part, guys, is really important in the sense that if you see that your market is not making a lot of money, why investing money in a market that is going down? An example, I have been reading about the restaurant industry here in Canada. 6 out of 10 restaurants are closing in the first year. 6 out of 10 restaurants. So it's a huge risk, right? From those 4 companies left, almost 2 of them closed in the first 3 years. That means that 80-90% of all the restaurants, the new restaurants, are gone in the first 5 years. So, based on that, we need to understand, okay, should we be investing money in creating a new restaurant? What we need to do to make it different, right? Or can I take that money and put it in something else? Because we need to understand the market and our capacity as well, right? How many hours per day, per week you need to invest to make that restaurant makes money? So sometimes it's better saying, you know what, I take my investment and I put it somewhere else. So understanding the numbers and understanding what's going on in the market, that's why we have to keep researching, helps you to take decisions. Once I was advising a company back in Colombia. They were selling some organic products, right? Because it was a huge thing. The problem was that the cost of producing those products was higher than the money that they were making. So the decision was basically what we should do. We went, we analyzed the market, we saw all the numbers. The organic market sucks, not in Colombia, like everywhere. Because it's very, very hard to produce with high quality standards. To say that your product is 100% organic, it requires specific things. There is a misconception of organic food. It's not that you grow something and like it requires a specific way of doing everything. The whole process has to be certified. So in that sense, we had to change the whole chain of value. We changed the whole business based on the market, based on the numbers, based on what we were seeing from the trends. So this is very important for us to put it in numbers so we can identify if we should go or not. The last part, that is the serviceable obtained market, is basically from all that portion, right, of my specific market, which one can I obtain? Which one can I actually reach? Which one can I penetrate with my strategy? So we have to calculate from my portion of the one that I can provide, which one I'm going to be able to obtain, right? So as you can see, this is very numerical, putting our findings into numbers so we can take decisions. Should we go or not? For your final project, there is one question that says, should we invest or not? So you have to tell me, will you open this type of thing or not? The only way of understanding that is through numbers. You can tell me yes, because or no, based on our findings, right? So in that sense, very important for us to check this part. So let me show you. So I will show you first, because I think this one is more for the class, the one that a group of the students did. This is a presentation that was made from our students in the last campaign management, right? So they were the ones working on this. So this was a very good presentation, and it's aligned to what we are looking right now. Okay, so basically, I will just show you until the topics that we are basically covering so far. So the purpose of this campaign was basically, or the purpose of campaign management is to develop a marketing strategy for a real client, right? This is what you guys are going to be doing. So in this case, they began by giving an introduction of the client. So this is information that they were analyzing from the document and from the client. We had an interview with the client, so we were basically understanding what was going on. In this case, what they analyzed from that interview, from the document, is that the company was basically looking to increase the brand awareness and the engagement. That was very important for them, right? For the client. Also, they were analyzing the different channels that they were having. So they have some retailers, they have stores, they are selling through Amazon, they are selling through Etsy, they are selling in different ways. So basically here we establish all the information from the client. We were analyzing what was going on, how they were creating that community, what we needed to do, so on and so on. Then they did a market research. I can show you the document because here, of course, is a presentation. They put everything, in my opinion, is very beautiful, right? They did a good job. But they have everything in numbers. So they were analyzing the most important trends in North America with the numbers. So they were saying that 60% of the American population, they are occasional players. That means that we had a huge opportunity to be selling the game to occasional gamers in the US. Also, they were saying that so 60% play board games occasionally, yes, and 80% of all the Americans were casual social gamers. That means that we need people, right, to be able to play. So why we were doing this? Because we needed to understand what was going on in the American industry to understand how to sell to them. We needed to understand and define who were these customers. We needed to understand what channels are they using. So in order to understand or to define or play a new game, they were basically discovering new products through social media. That means that social media is the main channel to communicate properly with these customers, right? Also, they were analyzing, and one factor that is very important at the hour of playing board games is that we have in our group of friends, usually we have a friend that loves games, and that person spread the word of specific games. There's always someone that has the information and recommend. So the word of mouth was a huge thing. So the question was how we can influence people to start talking about the product, right? So in that sense, we needed to understand what we were able to provide with the game. What is this game about? What is the value of this game, right? So Basically, this game is a very fast-paced game, and what makes this game different, one is the design of the game, and second is that it's, believe me, really, really fast-paced. It takes 5 minutes each round, and it's very fun. So in that sense, what makes different the game is per se the game, well, how we play the game. So the unique selling points, this is what I'm saying, what makes the game different. So the real-time card, the fast action base, and the design, as I also already mentioned. Then we were analyzing the different segments, right, of this specific market. So we analyzed, here they were giving all the different numbers and all the different things, because they saw that we have different types of gamers. We have the family gamers, so it's people that usually they spend during the weekends time with their family playing games, right? We have the casual gamer. Casual gamer basically is someone that plays board games when they are with friends, right? But they are not the ones introducing the game. Here is very common during winter that if you go to someone's house during winter, oh, let's do something. Oh, I have this game. And you start playing. Because it's a way to start breaking the ice. It's a way that we can do something fun that is different. Okay? And the party gamers were those casual gamers we divided based on the use of the game. So they divided party gamers that, in my opinion, they could be part of casual gamers, but they divided because these people were more into the action of playing in parties. At the end, we said, you know what? This is not the best target audience. Why? The size was really small. Second, it's a card game. So imagine playing cards, fast-paced game when you're drunk. You will destroy the cards. One, you are not going to enjoy the game because it's so fast that you will be like this. So this wasn't the best target audience for us. It was a game mainly, or it could be a very good game for families, but it's a game that we mainly enjoy when we're with people. Here, I think we need at least 4 people to have it, to have more fun. So based on all those, or based on the findings, they created our target audience. So the target audience, we divided first in the group of the casual gamers. So we were dividing them into young adults. We had 2 groups, 18 to 25, right? So we were saying, okay, so who are they? Usually people between 18 to 25, they are students, right? So they are always surrounded with people, they're always looking for entertainment, they're always willing to try something new, they're discovering a lot of things. So in that case, this was a group that their lifestyle was 100% aligned to what we were looking for, right? People moving, people playing, people willing to try different things. And then we had young professionals and professionals that, in my case, like me, I work the whole week, and during the weekend I want to do something different, right? I want to try different games. I want to have fun. I'm an occasional gamer because I don't play games. But if I go to a friend's party or something, I can enjoy playing these games. So in that case, it was important to define the groups, the ages, and the channels that they use. The younger generations, so 18 to 22, 25, they use more Instagram, TikTok related to social media. The more adults, we use more Instagram, and here we are still using Facebook, right? So Facebook was a channel that can help us to create also groups. So in that sense, we needed to analyze and understand what these guys were doing, right? Who they were. Here, I told them, if the gender is not important, don't include it on your presentation because it's not relevant for what you're saying. Here, we were targeting medium to high income is based on the fact that our game is more expensive. If you go to a store, you will see that Uno Exploding Kittens, the average price is around $20. This game is about 40. So it's a little bit expensive in that sense, right? But, so in that case, we need people that they have the money and that they are willing to pay for these kind of things. That the money is not a factor that affects their decision. So we were looking for medium to high income customers. And as I already mentioned, young professionals, students, that their lifestyle aligned to the game per se. Fast paced, that we can go, it's a social game, right? So in this case, we were analyzing what moves the casual gamers, who they are, what they do, right? What moves them. So in this case, for them, we saw and we discovered that the group of friends is very important. They constantly move or they are constantly analyzing and understanding things based on their friends. We are analyzing their behavior, right, towards our industry. Because if they play soccer, I don't care, right? It's towards our specific industry. So in that case, we were analyzing that what moves them towards the board game industry is basically the action of playing with friends, right? If I invite someone and we play board games, that's how they understand the game, right? That's how they're willing to try it. Otherwise, this is not the type of people that they will go to a retail store to purchase the game. Because they don't care, right? This is people that they love easy games. They are not the users that they love spending 10 hours per game. So this is people that they want games that are fast, but they are simple, that they can learn in 5 minutes and let's play. And that's it. So why this is important? Because according to the game industry, there are different types of games. We have strategy games, right? Usually the average time in a strategy game, it takes like 2-3 hours to finish one game. That's too long. So that's why we needed to understand what are these guys willing to play. So things that are simple, games that are very straightforward, fast-paced games. This is what mainly the casual gamers are playing. The casual gamers. The gamers is a totally different thing. The gamers are more into strategic games, right? And how they play, so they play occasionally in social settings, and they're heavily influenced by their friends. All right. So this is basically how they were dividing those casual gamers. They were dividing into casual chill gamers, they were dividing them into social party gamers, and family-friendly gamers, right? They were creating smaller segments based on the fact that they were casual gamers. Then they had the group advocates. The group advocates, yes.
No, did you say to remember you at 10?
Oh yeah, it's already 10? Okay.
Yeah, just so I know, but I didn't know. No, I'm sorry.
Powerful technology. We use 100 million. They're just showing that they're better at something. Try Gemini. Use Gemini. Use our phone. Da, da, da. So they are not presenting the product from a product perspective. They are not showing you the functionality of the product, right? Here they're showing you is what you can do with the phone. The first time that I saw this, my wife, she has a Pixel 9, so I went, hey Gemini, let's have a conversation. He can actually follow everything that you say. So I said, you know what, I want you to do this, and then okay, and he starts talking. So it actually works. So it's very, for me, it's very interesting to see how the brands are constantly changing the positioning that we have. We know Google, right? All of us. Probably is the biggest company in the world. But the perception of the products wasn't the best a few years ago. Not because they were bad, but it was because we thought Google was just the search engine. But Google has solutions for everything. And in that sense, they're changing the perception. So what they're trying to say is that, come on, we're Google, right? So this is part of how we manage our brand. This is part of the positioning. This is part of the brand. So that is why we're going to be seeing in a couple of weeks branding, okay? But it's very connected to what we were talking about in the positioning state. Where were we? What about? Okay, so the next step that we're going to be discussing is, okay, so we have our segments, we define our target audience, we have an idea of how we want to position our brand with those customers. So what we should do? So we're going to be doing, or usually when we are talking about people, we have one tool that is the buyer persona, right? What is the buyer persona? The buyer persona basically is a representation of our ideal customer, right? Because in a campaign we're talking to people, right? We use the profile of our target, right? We have all the demographics, we have all those things, we have the information, and we put it, boom, in a buyer persona. So, what is the purpose of a buyer persona? To understand that segment as a person. To understand that I'm not going to be talking to that group, but I'm talking to a person. How I'm going to be attacking Hailey Bieber or Selena Gomez, right? How I can sell them something. So I am going to use a person as the representation of my whole group, right? So this is useful when we are talking about our marketing campaigns because this helps us to understand the tone that we should be using. It helps us to give a human sense to the campaign, right? I'm not talking to the segment ABC, I'm talking to Hailey, right? I'm talking to Selena or whatever, Jaime, Pedro, right? So in this case, creating a buyer persona is very important. So what is a buyer persona? The representation of my segment, right? The one of my target audience, the one that we selected. So when we are creating the buyer persona, what we need to do is to define who they are, but give them a personal attribute, right? So let's say that we have this example. So what I do, my target audience I sell technology for medium and big companies. It's a B2B. You know what is the meaning of B2B and B2C? All of you understand that concept? Yes? No? So when we're talking about B2B, we're talking about business to business. So my client are other businesses, right? B2C is business to consumer. So in that sense, I'm selling to a final consumer. An example here, I have to sell this board game to you guys, right? So it's a B2C. But if I wanted to sell it to a company, it would be a B2B. So when our customer is a B2B, how we can create a persona of a company? So usually what we do is that we have to analyze in that company who might be the person understanding what I'm going to be selling, right? So with this example, I have a company and I provide a solution for small, medium-sized companies. So usually my product is a product that is so specialized that the communication that I have to use goes directly for the CEO or whoever is the one deciding what to buy, right? So in that sense, if I know that I have to sell that product to the owner or to the financial person, I can create my better persona of that potential CEO. So let's talk about Steve. Steve, in this case, Steve is 47 years old. So as you can see here, we are talking about a person, Steve, 47. So this has to be aligned to your target audience. Usually we have a gap of ages, right? 18 to 25, 25 to 34. But because we're giving here a human description, we have to be a little bit more specific. So he's 47 years old. Who is he? He is the CEO of a financial company. So he is the one taking decisions, right? So he has been in the role for 10 years. He decides of the company. So it's a company that sells or is worth more than $85 million. Who is he? So he's an innovator. He's not afraid of taking risk. So we are defining who this person is, right? So what is important for us in terms of the buyer persona is to identify the important things of our target audience. We're going to describe what is relevant for us, like from that group, what is relevant related to our business. What I was telling you with the board game. Why including the gender if the gender is not important, right? So if the gender is not important, if the income is not important, well, those are factors that, yeah, we can select the gender, but we can mention that in this case, that is not the most relevant thing, right? We have the idea is that we can create a profile that help us as the marketing team to define the actions, right? So I have to talk to Steve. What channels do you think a CEO is constantly using? How can I reach a CEO of a small company? Well, in this case, it's a large company. How do you think we can reach CEOs? Do you think they are using social media? Probably no, right? Which channels might work for professional target audiences? Any ideas? Guess? LinkedIn could be, yes, because it's a professional network. So they are constantly posting on LinkedIn if they're hiring, or we can see the size of the company. So LinkedIn could be. Here also we can see email marketing has one of the highest success rates in the sense that there is a study that says that we open emails almost every single day, and we're still opening emails. So for professional networks, email could be a channel, right? So we can start establishing those things here. So how he find us? So what is he doing? How we can reach him? Through email marketing, LinkedIn, Google Ads. I don't know. What is he using? What are the main pain points of the company, or in this case of Steve? So one of the pain points, you understand the meaning of pain points, right? No? Yes? So when we're talking about pain points, it's basically what are the main problems that this person is suffering, right? But we use it to identify what's going on. So in this case, the size of the service team is very important to him. There are 5 other people involved in the buying decision. So why that is a pain for him? Because he has to consult everything with other people, so the process is a little bit slower. So we need to identify usually what is that person, what they do, how they can reach us, how we can reach them, what are the main problems from the audience, right? And that's the purpose of creating the buyer persona. So we are going to take all that target audience, the profile that we established, right? And we are going to put, boom, that into a person. We're going to be describing the target audience as a person in order to understand how we're going to be approaching those potential customers. Okay? So this is very important because it's going to help us with the communication. How we're going to approach Steve. Now I know that, okay, so if he's a CEO, I have to use these specific channels. So then when we get to the campaign, I know that I have to communicate with Steve through LinkedIn, through the email, through Google Ads, right? So this is the base until here is the base of our research, right? We have been defining a goal, we have been aligning the mission, the vision, we were doing the market research, we were analyzing our target audience. So until here, we are constantly researching and analyzing. This is our planning phase, right? We're planning, adjusting, researching. And after this, we will start acting. We will start doing all the actions. How we're going to be reaching these guys? Boom. So we will begin by analyzing basically the strategy. So here, as I mentioned, we have more the positioning strategies. So when we're talking about positioning strategies, we can use category-based positioning, consumer-based positioning. So I will send you a document that can explain everything further so you have a clear understanding. I will just explain here briefly the difference between them so we have an idea of what we're talking about. But here important is to understand that positioning is how we're going to create that perception of our customers, right? How we want to be perceived from our customers. So in this case, when we are talking about category-based positioning, this is very common to see it when we are in a market that is highly competitive, right? Example with Samsung and Apple. They're constantly attacking each other so we can position us as different in that category, right? It's category based because we're going to be analyzing or we are going to be communicating how our products or services are better than the other options in the market. What Samsung did, I cannot crash creativity. I enhance that. So I'm trying to say, I'm not like Apple that they're doing this. I'm different from the competitors because we have this, right? So we're constantly comparing and we are analyzing the market, the segment to understand how we are better than our competitors, right? So it's based on that category that we're playing. Consumer-based positioning is basically based on the behavior of our consumers. Based on the behavior. Is based how they are buying, how they're using the product that I want them to, that I want to position them. I want to position my product based on that behavior. So it's based on my consumer directly. In my opinion, based the perception of our brand on the consumer's behavior is very risky. Because if the consumer behavior change, you're done, right? Your positioning has to come from the company. So it could be a perception of value, it could be a perception of whatever, but basing that on your consumers is really, really risky. The next one is competitor base. So in this case, as you can see, these two are very similar, right? One is the category, that is the whole industry, and a second one is going directly against someone. A clear example, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? In the 2000s, they were constantly attacking each other. There is one very famous commercial I will show you of Pepsi, that one kid is going to buy a Pepsi and he steps on Coca-Cola. So he's very good at. So they're attacking each other. McDonald's and Burger King, they're constantly attacking, right? So in that sense, we are going against these guys. So we are better than McDonald's because we have real meat. We are better than Pepsi because our flavor tastes better, right? So that's competitor based. Benefit-based positioning is based on the benefits that my product or service is going to provide. What in one way, because we can position in using different strategies, right? But one of the things that we were seeing from Gemini is based on the benefit that we can talk to Gemini and he can give us results, right? For me, it's useful. I'm getting something from Gemini. So in that sense, I can perceive the benefits. So I found those benefits, I think they're useful, so I can purchase the product. So in this case, it's based on the benefits that I'm going to be giving to my target audience, right? Price-based positioning. I think this one is pretty obvious. It's based on the price that we have. I don't think you guys saw it, but last year, have you seen the Old Navy that it's by the corner of Robson and Granville, right?
Yeah.
Right there in the corner. The whole last year, they were having 70% off the whole store. I was always wondering, what is the purpose of having that, right? Until someone told me, like, what if, because we don't know, but what if they're targeting tourists? Could be, right? Because if a tourist, someone that is just coming here and says, oh, 70% off, let's go in. But for us that we're living here, seeing something 70% off the whole year, that means that that's the price of your product. That is not a promotion. That's the price and that's it. So the perception of price also very, very dangerous. Some people think if it's more expensive, it creates more value. If it's cheaper, right? So when you are communicating constantly that you're the cheapest, an example, Walmart, you have to be the cheapest. That's why for Walmart it works. Because Walmart, they don't care about anything. They are huge. So they provide the best deals, right? But if you have a company and that you provide a specific service or a specific product and you don't want to compete with price, never use price-based positioning because the perception of price can screw your whole business. Don't go there, it's too cheap. The example that I was giving you with Old Navy. It's cheap, it's always 70% off. I'm not saying that it's bad, I'm just giving you an example. But defining your positioning based on price could be very risky. Here, in the attribute-based positioning, in a way we are comparing again with the competitors, but here in the competitor base we are attacking, right? Here what we are doing is that based on what we have, we can stand out of our competitors because we are providing something unique, right? We are the best at doing this because we are the ones doing this specifically, right? So this is based on the attributes that my product or my company have that they are unique. We have prestige-based positioning that is similar to what I already mentioned. So we are providing a status, right? And the last one, well, the positioning map, more than a positioning strategy, it's a tool that we use. The positioning map, it's a map that we use to understand the perception of our clients of a specific variable that I want to analyze. An example, I can use the positioning map to understand the perception of my customers of price and quality. An example. So I can say, Tesla, we think Tesla, the price is high and the quality is high. Toyota, so the quality is very high, the price is not as expensive, right? We have other brands. One brand that I don't like. I'm thinking Renault. It's a French brand. Quality, very low, right? Price, low as well. So in that sense, we can establish the perception according to variables that I'm analyzing to understand how I want to be perceived. If the price and the quality is something that is really relevant for our business, we can see opportunities. Let me show you an example. See if we can find it here. See the image. So, for example, in this case, they're analyzing quality and price in terms of coffee. So we can compare the different brands and how is the perception of the quality and the price of each brand. So in this case, they are saying that Starbucks is not expensive and the quality is not as high, right? We have Cafe Godiva, high quality but very high price. Lavazza, so high quality, medium high quality, medium high price. We have McDonald's here. In my opinion, if I'm honest, in my opinion, it's just me, right? I will put Tim Hortons here.
Yes.
I prefer McDonald's than Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Oh, the coffee of Tim Hortons is
Oh yeah, no,
horrible.
it's really bad.
The worst. McDonald's is way better. If I have to take one, I prefer McDonald's. So for me, it's like here. It makes me sick. But we can use this positioning map to establish how we want to be perceived. For your, I know I can tell you that, but for one of the exercises that we're going to be doing, we have to establish if we are going to be creating a coffee shop, right? So one thing that we can do is understanding the perception of value. So we can say, you know what, I want to be here. We can find opportunities. I want to be seen as high, well, no, not this one. I want to be perceived as high quality, but low price. So I can be here, right? Or I want to be perceived as very high quality and very high price. Why? Because I want to establish a unique coffee shop that we provide organic beans, that we have the all those things. So the positioning map helps us to understand the perception and compare the perception of the customers with other brands, with our competitors. So in that sense, we can use it to position our brand, right? So that's the positioning map. Do you have any questions so far? Nope, you're good? So with that, we will finish the second step of our map. We will finish the second and the third step. So we are going to start with the implementation phase. Until here, I will add here as well as part of the planning when we are planning and organizing our target. Once we define it and with the positioning, we are implementing. We're going to start implementing the strategies. We know what we want, we understand the market, we understand our target audience, so let's produce. How are we going to be selling our product, right? So let's start with the marketing mix. I know this first part of the course, we're seeing a lot of theory and we're seeing a lot of concepts, but it's important to have clear these concepts in order to start creating our marketing efforts, right? So I'm basically trying to give you the base understanding that we need, so the other courses are going to be much easier in the sense that we're connecting the structure, right? We're going to be seeing that in every channel that we use, you're going to be having SEO, probably with me. You will have to use this because I'm going to ask you, okay, so who is your target audience? What is your goal? What do you want to do? So understanding how everything is connected help us to understand that marketing, it's an everything. It's not specific things, it's not social media, it's not this and that, it's how we connect everything. So we're going to start talking about the marketing mix. The marketing mix actually is a very old concept. Very old, very basic. This is coming like from the 50s, 60s. That is the marketing mix of the 4 Ps. Why we tend to use the 4 Ps is because it's basic, but it includes everything, right? Now, with new theories, we're having like 6 Ps, 6Cs, 6Ss, so we have so many things, but we need to understand the basic, right? So when we're talking about the purpose of marketing, we're going to be seeing that we have the first one, that is product. So we will go one by one. So when we're talking about product, we need to understand is what are we offering. When we are talking about product, we need to understand everything related to our product. An example, with this board game, it's not only the game, it's the package of the game. It's to understand how we're going to be producing the cost of our product, right? How much it costs to produce one game. How much is for the box? How are we going to be designing the box? Is everything related, well, I hate this slide. It's everything related to the product, right? It's how we understand everything involved. We need, when we're talking about our product, we need to understand our unique selling proposition. Why will you buy my product and not others' product? Why or what are you seeing, feeling, understanding of my product? With the example that I have been giving you of Apple, with Google, why you will purchase that phone instead of another brand? What is important for you related to our product, right? So usually we think that analyzing the product is really easy, but it's not that simple, because understanding deeply the product means that we need to understand the cost, we need to understand the production, we need to understand all the variables affecting our product, the regulations, we need to understand a bunch of things, right? What is going on with the board games right now with all the tariffs? If we have a tariff of 100 or 140% of products coming from China, we should be producing in China or not? Should we move and find the production in another country? Can we produce in Mexico? Can we produce in the US? What we need to do to change our product? When they release the product, we still have the first version of the game, right? We were testing the game, we were analyzing everything, how people were playing, right? Because that's part of the product, how we use the product, right? And based on all the feedback, we're going to be releasing a second version of the game, where we're going to adjust the box per se, the package. We're going to be designing or changing some of the details of the box so you can read it from everywhere. So we have to keep constantly understanding how we use it, how we do it, and everything related to our product. Okay? So from the product as well, we need to understand the product life cycle. What is the product life cycle? There are 4 different stages in every product. This applies to every single product. What is this? Every product has a starting point, right? Every product has to start creating the market. So we are developing the market right now for this board game, right? So every product has a time where we are developing all our strategies. Every product then has a growing stage. Growing stage basically means that now we have established audience. Here we are developing the market. We are growing. We already have a bunch of customers. So we are growing until we get to a point where it's really hard to keep growing. We reach a maturity stage where the product is already known, everyone knows the product, it's really hard to come with another solution for the product. So after we reach that point, we're going to start seeing that the product starts to decline, right? This is very common. These are the 4 stages of each product. So when we are analyzing the life cycle of the product, what we basically do is that we are constantly checking what is happening, how the product is behaving in the market. Each industry has different, or even sometimes the brand per se has a different timeline for the different stages. And I think right now, when we're talking about products, right now the stages are going really fast because we consume constantly. It's very hard that you understand something, you adapt to the product, and you keep, no. We change constantly of technologies, we change constantly of products. You remember when ChatGPT was released? ChatGPT was released like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, right? Right now, they're growing like crazy. ChatGPT every day is getting more things, more popular, but they will go to a point where we go to another different option, right? That the product reach the top point, and then we will start seeing the decreasing in terms of the product of ChatGPT. What we do in marketing, or something that we can do in marketing, is that we can do some strategies to change or to adjust the time of these different stages. So let's go stage by stage. I think you have to go.
No, 12.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So when we're talking about the first stage, that is market development, so this is very common. It's the stage where we are introducing our product. It's the stage where we have to focus on defining those clients. We are building our market, right? We're introducing a new product and we are just understanding how to grab more clients. This stage, we are saying that we're new in the market, right? We're establishing our name, we're establishing our customers, we're creating everything from zero. So no one knows who you are. So here in this stage, we need to invest a lot of time and money in creating that awareness of the product, awareness of the brand, in communicating your value proposition, what makes you different from other companies, right? So we have to keep educating the market towards our company. An example here that I have been seeing in terms of education is that marketing here in Canada works totally different from our practice. I think I told you, here is everything is very slow. So when I talk to clients, I'm constantly educating my clients. If we start doing this, probably we'll start seeing these results, and we have to do this. And they're like, wow, really? Yes, it's very obvious, but because they don't understand a lot of concepts. So in that sense, we're constantly educating. We have to go and talk, right? So we invest a lot of money, I would say, in this phase because we have to start creating our name. So here we spend a lot of time and money introducing our market. Also, something that we have to take into consideration is that of course, at the beginning, everything is more expensive. So producing 1,000 units is more expensive than when you have the power and you can say, let's do 10,000. The cost per product is way higher when you produce in small amounts. So at the beginning, all the costs are very high. The cost in marketing is high because we don't have a clear target. We're building everything. So we invest a lot of money to see what might work, right? We invest a lot of money in creating the product. So we have very high cost in production, in marketing, distribution, and everything. This point that there might be limited competition, that depends on the life cycle of the product and the market, in the sense that if you are in a market that is highly saturated, an example, phones, well, we have so many competitors that introducing a new phone, it's not that you have to educate the market, it's that you have to educate why you might be better than the other option. So in this case, when we're talking about a new market, a new segment, very new product like AI, when it was released, everything was new. Still, there are some things that we don't know, right? There is a high chance that the competition is very limited. So in that case, you have to take advantage. So once you reach a point where the technology is very easy to copy, you will start seeing that the stages are going to change. High risk of uncertain future because we don't know what is going to happen. It's a new market, it's a new product, so we have to invest more money. So in terms of challenges, high cost, as I was mentioning, not only cost in terms of money, also in terms of hours, in terms of work. I don't know how many hours the creators of this game that I am telling you, they have spent just in developing the game, right? It's a huge amount of hours that you need to consider because that at the end, time is money, right? So we need to be aware of those kind of things. So we have some strategies that we can do in this specific stage. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. I have to go to the washroom really fast. So, some strategies that we can use to start managing our first stage in our life cycle. The first one, as I was already mentioning, is to educate your market. You need to communicate and educate your audience so they can understand your product, so they can understand your company, so they can understand what makes you different. So we have to use a lot of different options to educate. We have to create tutorials. We have to use step-to-step guides. We have to create as many things as we can to educate our customers. So education is going to help you to make that process of entering into a new market easier, right? If you're able to educate properly, people is going to be able to understand your product faster. So in that sense, you can start selling. I will say that education is going to help you as well with the awareness, right? Because the more people understand how to use your product, the more people are going to be talking about your product. So here we need, as I was mentioning before, we need to start creating different campaigns to create that awareness. We need to communicate what makes us different. We need to be able to understand which channels might work for our company, so we can introduce our product, we can introduce our company. So creating awareness, again, is going to help us. Here in this sense is that when we are in a new market, And when we are developing a new product, one problem that we might face is that we want to do everything, right? At the beginning, we always try to do everything. No, let's do this and let's do that. And that is very expensive. That basically adds more cost to our campaign, to our business. So one recommendation is to basically use your resources properly. Identify which channels might be the best ones for your business, for your product. That is based on our target audience. So that's why it's so important that we understand how they, like the channels that they are using, how are they finding us, how are they perceiving everything, so we use properly the things that they need. An example with this company that I have been mentioning all the time is that at the beginning they were using every single platform. They were using YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, emails, the website, but they were not doing anything at the same time because they were trying to use so many things that how you can use all of them if they were having only 2 employees, right? So understanding your limitations also is important. Understand what you need so you can, your capacity, so you can understand how to communicate properly with those channels. Here I have an example with Tesla. Tesla was released, the first Tesla was released, the Roadster was released, I don't remember when, probably 15 years, 20 years ago, no? But when Tesla introduced the Roadster, that was the first electric car, right? They were creating a new market. They were creating a new market. It was completely new. No one was having electric cars. So yes, we can say that they were part of the car industry, yes, but they created a new market with electric cars. So all the effort that Tesla, they put a lot of effort in connecting, in communicating, in educating their customers of why we should be buying an electric car and not a gas car. So that's an example of the first stage in this case. The second stage of the life cycle of a product is the market growth. So once you have established your company, once you have established your product, we are going to start seeing that we start growing, the numbers starts to increase. Tesla released then the second car, a third car, they have been growing, right? Tesla now, they have factories in Germany, here in Canada. I don't know if they're going to close it. They were saying that they were going to close it. But they have different factories now around the world. They are selling a lot of cars. So now the technology is already introduced. We know electric cars. We are demanding electric cars. So we're basically growing, right? So here, in terms of this stage, we are selling based on the customers. We have a bigger base of customers, right? There is a high demand of the products. The awareness is there, right? So we have more people purchasing. Here we're going to be seeing that we start seeing more competitors, right? When Tesla introduced the electric cars, they were the only ones. But now we are seeing more competitors. So I think now almost every brand, they have at least one electric car. So in that sense, we're seeing that other competitors are adopting that technology. So that is going to affect, in a way, Tesla, but the market percent keeps growing and growing, right? So we're seeing that based on the fact that we have more resources, that we're growing. Tesla was able to go to Germany, establish a factory in Germany, so they produce cheaper to sell in Europe. They went to Asia. I don't know where is the factory in Asia, but they're producing as well there, so they produce cheaper, so they can sell in the Asian market, in the US, in Mexico, for Latin America. So in that sense, we can optimize the cost of production. Why? Because we know how it works. We already went through all the from the stages of selling our product, so we can now manage better our cost. Here, the main problem that we're going to be seeing in terms of growing is that we're going to be seeing more competitors. Every time someone introduces a product that is really new, revolutionary, we're going to be seeing people copying the technology or entering the market. So in that sense, the main problem here that we're going to be facing is to defend our positioning or defending what we have as a company. Some strategies for this specific stage is that we can expand our distribution. As I was mentioning, we need to find ways to produce cheaper. We need to find ways to reduce the cost of production. So in that sense, we will have more money. Basically, we can start or we can have a stronger differentiation based on our product, right? When Tesla, if we still think about it, and we think in electric cars, we still think in Tesla as the number one. Because first, they were the first ones, and second, because the perception of the brand is really high. Right now, as we saw and we discussed, they're having issues based on Elon, but in terms of the brand per se, we have a very high perception of the brand. Based on that differentiation, we can start building loyalty with our customers. Creating loyalty right now is very hard, so we need to think how we can establish those loyalty programs, how we can approach those customers to understand what they need, how we can be more than just a product, a service, so we can communicate properly and we can create that loyalty. Here in this example, when they introduced the iPhone, of course they were the first ones, but then we have been seeing all these years how iPhone is constantly fighting the other companies to see that they are still the leaders, right? In terms of phones, they are still the leaders worldwide, but the gap is reducing every single year. So let's see how long they can retain the market position. We will go now to the third stage, that is getting to that point where the market starts to get saturated, right? So we're going to start talking about the maturity of that specific market, so or that specific product. So we reach a point where the market is already highly saturated. We have many competitors. We have very few things that are changing. The innovation stops. The product reach a point where it's hard to move. We don't know where to expand, right? It's already there. Everyone knows about the brand, the product. So in this stage, an example, sodas. Do you think there's a lot of things happening in the soda market? We have Coca-Cola, we have Pepsi, more than that, right? So it's already a mature market. It's a market that we know Coca-Cola, we know Pepsi, we know other brands, but that's it. So what we need to do in this stage, it's basically strategies to maintain our position in the market. So here is where we start fighting to create that loyalty, to create that retention of our customers. Try to see how you take market share from your competitors. So it's highly, highly important, or one of the priorities is to maintain that position, right? The same with phones. In terms of the product, there is nothing really new. They're still doing the same thing. It's just how we can start checking and taking market share from our competitors, right? So here, the sales, in terms of sales, we are going to be seeing that the sales become a little bit more stable. We are not getting more customers. It's more how we retain the ones that we have. So the profits starts to decrease, right? So in that sense, we need to start seeing how we can start managing the competitors, how we approach. So usually when a market starts to get highly saturated is when we start seeing small changes in prices because we need to sell. However we do it, we need to keep selling. So in this case, the most important part is to retain our customers and be able to grab more market share, right? So some strategies that we can do is that we can start updating our versions of the products. So you see this with the phones, right? They're constantly releasing phones so they can keep their position in the market. That doesn't mean that the phone is really new. It's just that they are constantly updating the version so they can have some market share, right? To keep the interest of that specific market. We have to start optimizing the prices in that sense so we can keep, if we have the same number of clients, we can retain more money. So cost of production, trying to reduce those costs, the cost in labor, so we have to optimize everything in that sense. As I was mentioning, you have to maximize the efficiency, so we're reducing cost all the time. And the example, well, I already gave you the example. So in this case, the sodas industry, they have been in the same maturity stage for years. The advantage of this specific market is that there is not really a different option, right? So we drink Coca-Cola, we drink Pepsi, and that's pretty much it. But in recent years, it has been decreasing the consumption of these type of products because they're very sweet, they have a lot of sugar, they have a lot of issues. So what Coca-Cola and Pepsi are doing is that they're releasing the Coke Zero so they can change that perception of sugar. They're releasing new products that they might be attractive for the customers, but that's pretty much it, right? And the last stage is the decline phase. When we talk about decline, we're talking about how we start seeing that market is going down. As I gave you the example last week, and with Coca-Cola, they were facing a decrease in terms of the consumption of the product because we were seeing new substitute products. We were seeing that the demand was reducing, right? More people were drinking tea or water or other options. So the market was decreasing. In this case, we're going to be seeing that the market starts to change. We're going to be having less sales. We're going to be seeing that some competitors might be